Everybody were slaves. Everybody. White people were slaves, as well as virtually every other race in history. The white slave trade was primarily through the Arab world, particularly off the Barbary coast of North Africa. White women were seen as a great prize. Do I now get to desecrate their statues and riot all over the Arab world? I hope not. Gee, I'm angry. I'm mad about something that never happened to me, nor has it happened to you. The Prophet Muhammad himself owned slaves. Now, come on, guys. I want to see you do something with this one. The Prophet Muhammad owned slaves. What you going to say about that? I'm going to go protest and desecrate a Christian church because I know they won't do anything. But I know I'd better not do anything about an Islamic monument because I'm a coward. Slavery was a potential threat to anyone that went through the Mediterranean. Anyone that lived on the coast were in danger, from Portugal to Britain. Entire coastlines of Italy had been abandoned because of the threat of people taking them as slaves. And when the Arabs controlled most of Spain, the Muslims would go out, taking people from France and other areas in Europe. White people. We don't know how many. Arabs didn't keep that accurate records of their slaves. But at a minimum, it was over 1 million. At a minimum. But slavery against whites weren't practiced just by Muslims. Look at the Roman Empire. They didn't care what color you were. It was irrelevant. They took slaves from Gaul, from Hispania, from Germania, from Greece, from the Balkans, as well as Britannia. They took slaves from all across Europe. They even enslaved their fellow countrymen. Estimates say that between 20 and 40% of the Roman Empire were slaves, most of them white. Same for ancient Greece. At least 25% of the population were white slaves. It was common to see concubines in Turkish harems. The Franks also bought Slavic slaves. The Vikings invaded and conquered parts of Northern Europe and enslaved those that they conquered. White people. Same pretty much all over Europe, particularly all over the Slavic communities. Venice was one of the trading routes for white slaves to the Arab world. White slaves were taken as far away as Iceland. The Arabs also took slaves from what is today Georgia, not Georgia in the United States, the country of Georgia. The sexual aspect of it was a huge part of the Ottoman slave system. But let's go to Asia. Here we go again. The Afghan occupation of the Persians, they took thousands of slaves. And of course, like always, the enslaved women were for a certain purpose. Of course, the enslaved harem women were, of course, for a particular reason. But they also guarded the enslaved men who, of course, had been castrated. People were enslaved across Asia dating back to at least 1600 BC. Yes, BC. I'm not using that BCE crap. Do you think there were any white people enslaving people in Asia in 1600 BC? If you do, you need to read a book. Slavery was practiced all across India. I will say, however, I think it was around the 4th century that it was claimed that they did try to ban it in certain regions, but of course it didn't work. In the northern part of India, especially, where the Muslim influence was growing. Go to Vietnam. Their girls were sold as sex slaves to the Chinese. Well, taken by the Chinese. But during the Song Dynasty, around 1000 AD, the Vietnamese raided China and took their people as slaves. Read a book, people. Slavery existed everywhere, and everybody was a slave. If you like these rants, hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for listening.